Hello, this is Miss Dagenford, and today I wanted to show you what our cells need to do to utilize the energy that we give it. So, for instance, the sandwiches, the cookies, the banana, the apples that we eat all have those carbohydrates and lipids, the fats, the oils, the proteins, and we know that the body is going to break them down, it's going to break them down to all of those monosaccharides and amino acids and oils and fat molecules, and we've got to do something with them. Those are fantastic molecules, but they're almost too big to utilize for small little energy transactions. So we know glucose and fats have a phenomenal amount of energy. And in fact, the analogy I like to use in class is that they are like a $1,000 bill. And $1,000, nobody's going to say no to that. Yeah, we're all going to take $1,000, especially if somebody just hands us the bill. Well, but it's not as if you can go to your local Wawa or 7-Eleven or whatever the case may be, and you can't walk in there and say, hey, give me a candy bar and a slushie. That would be horribly bad for you, but it's not as if you can do that and then hand them the $1,000 bill and say, oh, by the way, here you go. Like, they can't change that. So for small transactions of money, we have smaller bills that we currency that we can use. We have $1 bills, we have $5 bills, and just like that, our cell has smaller amounts of energy stored in different molecules. So glucose and sucrose and oils and fats are fantastic. We want them, they're nutrients and they're energy, but for those small little energy transactions, we need ATP. Now, you should have already watched the video I had for ATP. So this video is really just going to be to make sure that you've done everything correctly. So if you watch the video, you should have known that the oxygens on the phosphates have a negative charge. And all of those oxygens mean that ATP is unstable and it has energy. It's bursting with energy, much like a compressed spring is. And so here we have our adenosine triphosphate. This top orange portion is our adenine. So just double check to make sure that you've got yours labeled correctly. Down here, the green is a 5-carbon sugar called ribose. But they're not going to be the most interesting thing about ATP, and that's going to be the phosphates. That's what we're going to look at. So it's these 3 phosphates, adenosine triphosphate, that are going to be very crucial for our metabolism. So negative charge, energy, and then the labels for this slide. Slide 6. When the last phosphate is broken, energy is released and ATP, ADP is made. Sorry, adenosine diphosphate. Now, adenosine diphosphate is going to be very similar. We got adenine, we've got the ribose sugar. This time, we've got 2 phosphates. Now, don't worry that this looks slightly different. The phosphates can sometimes have oxygens with negative charges. Sometimes the oxygens have a hydrogen, but they're phosphates. Don't worry about the little weird differences. But the key is they only have 2 phosphates in adenosine diphosphate. So remember, disaccharide, dipeptide, diphosphate, 2. Di means 2. So this time we only have 2 phosphates in our adenosine diphosphate. Now, when this energy is released, it can do cell work and actually carry out work. So this is what kind of ends up happening. And you can see here's our little GIF. Let's see if it'll work. It was working before. Um, there we go. And so as that last phosphate is broken, it actually releases energy. And so over on the right, I put the little GIF for a compressed spring. So when you have all three phosphates together, it has potential energy stored in those phosphate bonds. And then when that last phosphate gets released, it's like releasing the spring. So all three phosphates are like having a compressed spring. And then when you release it, that's releasing the energy. So what we end up having is this ability for our body to recycle energy. Now, what we're going to look at eventually are two big cell processes that utilize this ability to recycle ATP. You saw in the video that we only have about 5 grams of ATP. So down here we have adenosine diphosphate, and we can label, here's our ADP, sorry, and you can make this smaller if that's bugging you how big that is. So there's our ADP. Notice only 2 phosphates. Now, in order to recover our ADP, we need to actually add energy into this. This would be an endothermic reaction or an endergonic, that's another name for it, putting energy in. And notice it's going to come from sun or food and to build ATP from ADP and a phosphate. So we're putting our phosphate back on, much like compressing the spring. The spring can't do work when it's allowed to relax. And so here we have our ATP. Again, if you want, you can make this a little smaller just to fit it in a little nicer. So here we have our ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And often when you see ATP, they kind of show a little explosion. That's a very common biology textbook thing, to show a little explosion for energy. And then when we do that, we've now recovered ATP, yay, and now this ATP can do work. It can release that energy for reactions in the cell. So that should take us just to the end. And just to practice, you're going to build ATP and ADP, and I'll show you what that should look like. Now, all throughout our body and plants and amoebas, we take reactions that release energy, and we can use that reaction to fuel reactions that need energy, and we call this coupled reactions. And so I pulled some nice pictures that I found. So just like one wagon that's going down the hill pulls the other wagon up, or shooting a cannonball pushes the wagon up the hill, or harnessing a falling rock to pull a bucket of water up, you can use energy releasing kinetic energy to move and something that needs energy. So we're going to look at two reactions that, and you saw that on the video. So what you should have seen for photosynthesis, what you should have done, you should have dragged sugar is one of our products, and oxygen is the other product for photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide is going to be one of the reactants, and then water is going to be the other reactant for photosynthesis. For cell respiration, it's going to appear the exact opposite. Now, these aren't just reversed uh, uh, reactions. It's not just one reaction is backwards. They are different individual reactions, but in terms of what their reactants and products are, they are just reversed. So that's what you should have found for our photosynthesis and cell respiration. And then the last one had to do with our uh, um, the the hydroelectric dam, and so you can take a picture of the one that you draw and put it into this space. And then I'm gonna have you click on this and watch the video for the dam. So that should take us to the last slide. Check our understanding. So let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to build the adenosine triphosphate, and the pictures aren't going to perfectly align, but that's okay. So with adenosine triphosphate, the whole point is that you're going to be building 3 phosphates. And so there's our adenosine triphosphate. And then with adenosine diphosphate, you're going to go down. And again, it's not going to look perfect. I get that. Now be careful, I gave you some extra here. Adenosine diphosphate, you're just going to plug that last phosphate in. And then we'd have our separate phosphate because they've released. So there's our adenosine diphosphate. So that should give you a little check for what you did or watched in the video. So I hope that helps. And we're going to move on to the video lesson on photosynthesis.